four boys.
Four boys, yeah.
Right on, right on.
Wow. Yeah, you come from a big family.
Yeah,
so-
we're five boys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, growing up in that household was really fun. It's pretty
And
loud, a lot
where
of
did you-
wrestling.
Where
Lot
did you
of
fit into
fighting.
that? Were you
I'm the youngest.
which probably means you're the toughest then.
That's exactly it.
Hey.
I'm actually not sure if my parents know that I'm here right now. Like, wait, do we have 4 or 5? How many kids?
We
Wait,
lost count.
are we missing one? No, but yeah. So yeah, interesting with four boys.
Yeah, and we've also got a tiny little dog. She's about that big,
Yeah,
less than 2 kilograms.
Right.
Tiny little poodle. It's my wife's dog, and you can really notice that because she absolutely loves my wife. She'll follow around the house and everything.
Oh.
With me, though, no.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump into this?
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Today we're diving into a topic that's become more and more important. So looking at grid balancing and forecasting, how important is this for the Japan power market? We're joined by Gordon Murray, Country Manager Japan at Augur AI. Gordon is originally from Australia, has been living in Japan for more than 20 years. Gordon was previously working at Industrial Info Resources before joining Augur AI as Japan Country Manager. With a strong background in data-driven decision-making, consultative sales, and energy market intelligence, he's worked closely with energy traders, analysts, and major infrastructure players across the region. Gordon brings a unique perspective on how data, strategy, and commercial execution intersect in today's evolving power markets. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And Augur AI is a company focused on AI-driven forecasting and energy and grid optimization. Gordon, could you maybe provide a quick introduction about your company?
Sure. So Augur AI is a relatively young company, but already quite successful. We were established in 2021. And as you can imagine, being a young tech company like that, the first few years were really related to R&D and product development. Our founders, so one of them is currently still an Oxford University professor of mathematics and statistics. And the other one was a former senior guy at Ernst & Young.
Wow,
So
right
it bridges the two, technical and mathematical worlds to the business world together.
Yeah.
So what we do is that we have one of the most advanced machine learning AIs in the world that we've developed ourselves.
Yep.
And it's used to predict accurately, to forecast accurately the demand and the supply of various different types of energy and environmental related things. So one of them, of course, is the electricity industry, which we'll be focused on talking about today.
Yep.
And then we have as well the ability to predict the demand for the charging stations for electric vehicles and things like that, which will be part of the discussion we'll talk about today. Also natural gas and the district heating and things like that, and water and wastewater as well, right?
Yeah.
So with electricity, okay, so we have the ability to predict the generation capacity of very accurately up to 14 days out. Also the demand of the consumer demand, also the prosumer demand as well, which we'll talk about. So for those that don't know, prosumer means consumers that also produce something. So in the case of electricity generation, that means, for example, individual households or factories or commercial facilities where they consume electricity but also produce it with solar panels on the roof. That's a typical type of example.
Yeah.
We also have the ability to predict the demand for electric vehicles. We also have the ability to predict any anomalies in the electricity transmission. So that could be some type of error, some type of misfunction, or some type of what we call non-technical losses, otherwise known as electricity theft, which we'll talk about as well. And yeah, we have the ability to predict the other aspects of the grid as well.
Right on. Yeah.
Well, I do want to just say I'm a proud kind of prosumer at our house.
Every time I go to Terry's house,
I have to show you the control panels.
The first thing he shows
For
me,
the
he
house
walks
tour.
me in for the house tour. I get this every time I go to his house. He walks me through it. He's like, "Do you notice anything here?" And he's like, his battery's fully charged.
Yeah.
He's a proud owner of that. And
Yeah, solar rooftop.
free aircon. Free aircon. But
No, it's great. And it's quite interesting. So I'm actually not sure because with kind of all of the electricity that's generated and we're kind of selling it back to TEPCO Power Grid, um, where would kind of your company get that data from? Is that data kind of from the utility companies, or
Yeah,
is it just working with the different power retail companies and they're also providing that data sources?
kind of all of the above. So in the case that we're working with the power generation companies, we'll get that data from them. In the case that we're working with TSOs or DSOs, so transmission service operators or distribution service operators, we'd get that data from them. Yeah.
Okay. For our listeners here that may not be familiar, Japan is quite unique. It's very different to other countries. Like, for example, if we're looking and comparing with Europe, a lot of the countries are actually all connected with different interconnection power grids. Japan itself is isolated. Japan has 10 regions, and each region is governed by an EPCO, a utility company. And then even then with the hertz, so on the left-hand side, you'll have 60 hertz. On the right-hand side, it's 50 hertz. So it's almost as if it's acting like it's two countries kind of connecting with each other with limited kind of connection points.
Yeah. In the case of Japan, so Japan's been only really liberalized since 2011, and it's still dominated by 10 companies, as you mentioned. Another thing that's quite important distinction is there's TEPCO, Tokyo Electric, there's Hokuriku, there's Hokkaido, there's Okinawa Electric, there's KEPCO, Kansai Electric, and Chugoku Electric, and so on, right?
Yep.
So there's 10 in total, but they are generation companies that are responsible for about 80% of the overall generation of electricity in Japan. The generation companies, so they generate electricity. They also transmit and distribute the energy. So they're TSOs and DSOs as well. And they're also retailers. So
Yes,
the
that's
retail
right.
market in Japan's only really been liberalized since, what is it, 2016, something like that, right?
Yep.
It's relatively recent. So Europe has an interconnected market, as you mentioned before. So there's 35 countries that are part of this network, right? Europe's been liberalized since the 90s.
Mm.
Uh,
Wow, yeah.
and so there's a lot of things that happen as a consequence of that. So just strictly due to the time that both markets have been liberalized for, there's a lot more transparency in the European market versus Japan. So Japan's a lot less transparent. Another thing is we mentioned that in Japan's case, we have the generators, TSOs, DSOs, and retailers all as one thing. They're not unbundled. Although there is competition, they're not unbundled. In Europe, they are strictly unbundled. So there's a clear
Right.
distinction between generation companies, transmission and distribution companies, and retailers. If you've been in Japan around the time of the Fukushima earthquake, you would have experienced firsthand some of the consequences of that because we had a lot of blackouts that were rolling every day, where they didn't experience that type of problem in Western Japan. And there was limited ability to convert
Right.
to this part of the grid
Yeah.
over here, right? Another consequence of that is it hampers balancing. Another thing that hampers balancing as well is that these 10 regions here behave almost independently of each other.
Yep.
That's another issue. Another issue is another difference, I should say, between Europe and Japan is that Europe has a pretty heavy reliance on nuclear energy. And that's part of the decarbonization plans long term for Europe as well. So, for example, France, I think it's something like 70% of the overall generation capability from France is
Right.
about 70%.
Yeah.
In Japan at the moment, 60% is still based on fossil fuels,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So both Japan and Europe are signatures to the Paris Accords, and both have pretty ambitious plans to decarbonize with goals set for 2030 and 2050. So the 2030 goal for Japan is they want to get to, I think the exact figures, 46% carbon reduction versus, I think it was 2013 levels. That's pretty ambitious. One way that they're going to do that, of course, is through the introduction of more and more clean sources of renewable energy, such as solar and wind. There are other things that are on the horizon for Japan as well. Japan's been a pioneer when it comes to hydrogen, so green hydrogen. There are some issues with that, of course. Japan has been a pioneer in the sense that the first tanker to store and transport hydrogen, I think it was built by Kawasaki Heavy Industries, so it's the first one in the world that's
Wow.
specifically for that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of investment in green energy by Japanese companies in parts of the world, such as Australia and places like that, that have got good infrastructure for that type of thing. But green hydrogen is still somewhat economically unviable.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still other concerns with it in terms of safety and engineering as well that you don't have with solar and wind, right? So at the moment, solar accounts for, I think it's 12% of the overall production of electricity in Japan. Wind is not quite there yet. It will come up in the future. It will definitely expand in the future. From what I have seen, wind is currently less than 6 gigawatts of overall production, which is significant, but Japan has a much higher potential capacity for that.
It's a very mountainous area, so it's
very
quite
mountainous,
difficult
yeah.
to do anything from an onshore perspective, and the offshore wind market is, well, it has been quite slow in the last couple of
It's
years,
just, yeah,
especially
with
with,
rising costs.
and also with
permitting
Mitsubishi
problems,
and
rising costs. Yeah, in fact, it's quite well known, but Mitsubishi Corporation pulled out of a massive project last August. So there's some
on the round one,
headwinds there for sure.
wind bids.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a market that, I mean, everyone's talking about moving forward at some point. Like, it has to. When we're looking at anything from, like, Okta did the 2050 energy mix of what they want to get to, and wind is a massive part of that, right?
Yeah.
So it really goes to show that the Japan market is preparing or hoping to move closer into the wind market, and that's for sure not coming from onshore wind.
Yeah. But I guess with offshore wind, you also have a lot of grid constraints, right?
Oh, yeah.
Peter, you're from Denmark. In Denmark, you have a lot of that offshore wind energy, but look how Denmark is well connected within Europe. There's so many kind of grid connections, and just connecting to the UK, to Germany, to other parts of Europe, and also connecting to Norway to store a lot of the excess energy. I think with Japan, okay, if you're looking at offshore wind projects in Hokkaido, and then, all right, you're bringing it back onshore onto Hokkaido, and then how do you then bring that energy back down to where the places need that energy? So those are kind of the things and the constraints that Japan will have on the grid.
I think it's a little bit difficult if you compare anything from, like, Japan to Denmark, for instance, from a geographical perspective.
Sure, yeah.
Like, what would you connect here? You'd connect to Korea, right? And then from Korea, you're also meeting different issues.
Well, that'll be interesting if you can, actually connect within the East Asian kind of different peripheries.
Yeah, that's a side note. Sorry, that's a side note. It's a discussion for another day. But yeah, right on. One thing I also wanted to touch upon here is more on the forecasting side, because forecasting is becoming more important now than it was before. But maybe you want to share a few notes on why this is?
Okay, good question. Okay, so there's a few reasons why. So for example, with fossil fuel power, nuclear energy, there's a very predictable base load of energy there, right? Which is very steady. Okay. We kind of spoke about this very briefly before, but Japan and a lot of other countries in the world, most of the world, I should say, has very ambitious decarbonization goals, and renewable energy, so solar and wind in particular, will be a big part of that, right? Sure. And a lot of that's comes down to economics in the end. Those are cheap and reliable ways to do that type of thing. But those are intermittent sources of power, in the sense that the sun doesn't shine the same way every day. The wind doesn't blow the same way every day, right? So they're intermittent sources of power. Okay. If the grid is balanced perfectly in terms of supply and demand, you can keep the frequency where it should be, right? If either of those things are out, well, it can destabilize the grid, and that leads to load shedding, blackouts, that type of thing, right? So obviously we want to avoid that type of thing, right? So in order to do that, predicting what the supply and demand would be to balance that for the next day is paramount, right? That's very important, right? There are penalties that can be incurred to the generation companies and also the aggregators if they get that wrong, right?
Right. Yeah.
So there's two types of penalties that we should look at. One is in Japan, it's referred to as the balancing fee, and that's it's 80 yen, around about 80 yen per kilowatt hour, right? Per kilowatt hour. So that's one thing which is quite significant, but also to curtail the potential mismatch imbalance, that is simply shut off the generators, right? Which means they can't sell electricity. In other words, they're being penalized for it twice effectively,
We're
right?
seeing a lot of this in Kyushu right now.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When we look at that from a sort of macro perspective year on year, that's, potentially millions and millions, tens of millions or more of revenue that can potentially be lost by power companies, individual power companies year on year. If you look at it more of a, on a macro level across Japan, then it's, hundreds of millions of dollars at least.
Yeah. So the good thing here is it seems like with better forecasts, we're also leading over to better grid optimization strategies.
Yes.
Yeah. How do
Which
we
leads
see?
to less waste, which means to improved revenue for companies and a more stabilized and safe grid. Yeah.
How do we see actual improvements here in the last couple of years, and what do you see, or what do you expect to see in the future for this? Maybe it's a little bit of a difficult question, but
It is a bit of a difficult question. Yes. I mean, yeah, obviously there's been a lot of efforts internally at these companies with their own, internally at power companies and aggregators to do their own forecasting and so on. So
Yeah.
that's been something that's been more of a focus on the
Right.
past couple of years out of pure necessity. There are a few AI companies and companies that specialize in advanced weather monitoring systems that have
Yep.
also been developed and pushed to market over the past few years too. And we're, kind of one of those, right? And I just see it getting more and more critical in the future because the energy mix will require more intermittent sources of power. There'll be more what could be viewed as unpredictability based on just the way things are shaping up. So we've got a lot of power intensive things that will be added to the economy over here, such as more data centers and things like that, which are
right.
very power intensive.
yeah.
At the moment, electric vehicles in Japan, if you compare them to other countries, the last figure I saw, pure battery electric vehicles in Japan, so not plug-in hybrids, but pure battery electric vehicles, there's not that many on the roads in Japan
Correct.
compared to
No.
other countries.
No.
Only about 200,000, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But if you include plug-in hybrids, so a hybrid of battery power that you can plug into the wall, plug into a power station or whatever, and gasoline, there's about 400,000 of them, leading to about 600,000 total, right? Which is not a lot if you compare that to, I think the state of California has something like 3 times that amount or something like that. It's a something. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Europe as well, and yes, the Scandinavian countries as well are just selling all these EV cars.
Yeah. There's a different reason for that. It's on the taxable side. So in Denmark, this is before I even moved to Japan. I think it's even before I moved to America. We talked about how you could get like a tax benefit if you bought an electric.
Subsidized. But even in
Exactly.
California as well, the EV cars are heavily subsidized, and that's how
Yeah.
they're kind of pushing for more EV car penetration in the market.
So they did that as well in Denmark, and that pushed forward it quite heavily.
Yeah.
And I think in Norway, oh my God, I probably should have researched this. Is 10 years ago. But they did a different policy for the highways, if I remember correctly. So you have 3 different lanes, and then the one lane is primarily like for buses and public transportation.
I see. Yeah.
And they added electrical vehicles were allowed to drive on that lane,
Yeah.
which is something that could get you from A to B a lot faster, right?
Yep.
Because you can kind of cut the queues.
Yep.
So a lot of people started buying electrical vehicles.
Yep.
This is not the only reason why people would buy it. It's
Sure.
more so on the money front, of course. But this is something that also kind of interesting. If I remember this correctly, if it's not, we have to cut it out. But
well, electric vehicles, although they haven't had much of an uptake in Japan yet, it will happen that there'll be more and more of electric vehicles that'll be on the roads in Japan in the future, right? Yeah. So there's a few things like that that change the and BESS, of course, is battery energy storage systems that change things for the future as well. So AI would be pretty critical in looking at the supply and demand of all of those things. So the infrastructure is changing around the world. It's changing in Japan too, and AI has to be a part of that. So I'll just give you an example, just one. So One thing that's being looked at a lot is the so-called virtual power plants. So
Yeah.
one way to look at the infrastructure, so you've got things like you've got, BESS, but you've also got the electric vehicles. So electric vehicles have quite a large capacity. So when they're not on the roads and plugged in, you can effectively reverse the flow of that to help to stabilize the grid
Yep.
when they're plugged into the wall, right?
Yeah.
So that's the current generation of chargers are able to do that type of thing.
Vehicle, is it called vehicle to house or something like that? So
V to G, vehicle to grid, but there's also vehicle to house, which is enables
you're
you
referring
to
to kind of the charging stations itself. You can also
no, but you can do it from your house as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So the charging stations and from your house, you
Mhm.
can do that type of thing. So you can have vehicle to house, which enables you to use your vehicle to help power your house, but you can also have vehicle to grid (VTG) that helps to go back to the grid. So that'll be a part of things as well, right? The overall infrastructure is changing, right? Which is hard to manage by regular sort of conventional sense. So AI tools such as ours would be critical to help solve certain problems, especially with balancing the grid and things like that in the future.
Yeah, and I guess like when you're looking at Japan, it also has a data transparency problem
Yes.
that doesn't exist in the same way in Europe.
Yeah.
With the HJKS, so the Hatsuden Jouhou
Yes.
Kokai system,
Yes.
which translates to the Power Generation Information Disclosure System.
Mm.
You're not required to announce anything or disclose anything that's below 100 megawatts for
That's right.
battery projects, right?
So power generation.
Oh, sorry, for power generation.
Yeah.
So this is going to be quite a difficult market when you're looking at anything from forecasting.
Yes. So let me just explain about the HJKS system. So it's a publicly available database of power outages, right?
Yeah.
So power outages, one way to look at that would be you've got planned ones and unplanned ones, right? So planned ones would be maintenance projects, and unplanned ones would be, well, there's lots of different reasons why it could be unplanned. It could be for economic reasons, or it could be, due to an accident, earthquake, that type of thing, right? There's some limitations though with the HJKS system. So one of them that you spoke about just now, Peter, is that anything under 100 megawatts, you're not obligated to disclose, right? Above 100 megawatts, you are obligated to disclose it, but things change, right? Things are subject to change.
Yep.
There's many reasons why a maintenance project would change. Will change schedule. Some of them would be due to the, don't forget, these are engineering projects that are several $1 million, right? So some of it would be things like the availability of labor to do that, right? These days, power companies don't have their own fleet of vehicles and all the sort of inspection equipment they need to do this. They hire outside companies to do that, right? It's more practical for them to do that. If they needed to take apart something to inspect it or to change out a catalyst or something like that, they would need heavy lifting equipment like cranes and things like that. Well, there's only a certain number of those in the country, right? So the availability of heavy equipment, cranes, that type of thing could be another factor, right? And then there's the economic factor as well on top of that, right? So things are subject to change. And sometimes those changes are very slow to be reported on, right? There's another limitation as well. And I saw a report actually from Wood Mackenzie that they're saying that 71 units that they're tracking, HJKS does not report on. I don't know exactly which ones they are.
Yeah.
You've got pure power plants, right? The ones that are owned by, TEPCO, J-Power, KEPCO, whoever, right? And then you've got ones that are a byproduct of producing something else. So that could be, for example, inside like a steel mill. Steel mills there's two ways to produce steel. So you have what they call a blast furnace, and then you've got an arc furnace, which uses electricity. Other applications that require a huge amount of electricity would be things like paper production. The machinery they use there is very torque intensive, so they need a lot of power to produce paper. And also petroleum refining and the production of petrochemicals. They burn off the gas for that, but they can recapture that electricity and sell it back to the grid. Just next to Yokohama, there's for example, a facility that's owned by Enios there. And from memory, they have 2 turbines there that each produce 600 megawatts of electricity. So that's a total of 1.2 gigawatts, of course. Maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe the ones that Woodmac are referring to are those sorts of ones that
Okay.
are within industry itself rather than being a power plant. Okay, we would track a lot of the outages as well. We'd try to get most of them. We definitely would have got the ones that would be the most market moving ones, and we talk directly to the engineers, the power plants themselves, the maintenance engineers, the scheduling engineers, that type of thing. And sometimes the data that we would get would be completely contradictory to what was published in HJKS,
Interesting.
and that might be because, well, things are subject to change,
Sure.
right? They don't necessarily publish everything. Everything above, below 100 megawatts, they don't publish as well. So there's some limitations there. Also, there's no mention of the status of most renewables in there as well.
Well, I want to kind of just touch upon AI, as you previously
Sure.
mentioned, because nowadays it's always the headline news. AI development, every company's trying to integrate AI.
Yeah.
I'm sure the utility companies and a lot of the power companies are also trying to and exploring in-house forecasting capabilities as well. If AI is going to be more commoditized, and if everyone's kind of forecasting capabilities are all getting more powerful because of such AI tools, do you think there is still an edge? Do you think everybody would just be kind of generally forecasting and getting kind of the same results, and everybody's kind of sharpening their forecasting results and skills?
Okay, that's a really good question. It's a good question because there's a lot involved in that. Okay, so firstly, you mentioned at the start that everybody's getting into AI. It's in the news a lot, that type of thing, which it is, right? But I just want to make a pretty important distinction about that. So if you remember back to the 90s, there was the dot-com bubble, right?
Yeah.
And it's called a bubble for a reason.
Everyone needed a .com, pets.com, diapers.com.
Yes. And AI has the potential to be the exact same thing as that, right? So it's all about substance at the end of the day. It's all about like how good it actually is. What does it actually do, right? So there will be, and you mentioned as well about whether it's going to be commoditized, whether people are going to get the same types of results. Well, AI is a very powerful tool, right? And just like all tools, it depends how you ultimately use it, right? At Ogre AI's end, we have probably the most powerful machine learning AI that does this specific thing for supply and demand balancing for energy in the world. I can say that pretty confidently, right? The substance behind it is great. We've got people that are extremely intelligent, that are extremely good at what they do, experts in their field from Oxford University, from MIT, from Princeton, and so on. What we're able to do with that is that we're able to do things much more accurately than other companies can, right? But remember, it's just a tool, right? So it depends how it's used at the end of the day. So at the company end as well, so the client end, we have to work very closely with their team, with their engineers, to make sure that we're getting the right data that we can feed into this, right? We need to make sure that we're with the people that are in charge of optimization and scheduling, we need to make sure that they're using it the right way as well, right? So we work very closely with the client to produce something that is particularly unique for them. AI, especially for this type of thing, we're not like a large language model AI like ChatGPT or Claude AI or whatever, which are great. They're great tools. They're good fun to use. We're a machine learning type of AI. So it's really math intensive, algorithm intensive, right? So with that type of thing, the expression is, the proof's in the pudding. At the end, you have to really see the results and compare them to what's actually happened perhaps in the past, compare them to other efforts that you've made for forecasting and so on as well, right? The good news about what we do as well is that each client that we have, we do a trial with them at first. So we start to work with real data to give real results, to help to fine tune things and to teach the AI how to predict it better and better, right? So that period lasts for several months. And then it's optional whether they'll go for a full subscription after that or not, right? So we do that because it's at the end of the day, it's numbers, right? And in essence, it's kind of an intangible thing. So to help it make it more tangible for them, we have that trial period where we work together to refine things, to fine tune things, to make sure it works well for them, right? So, I mean, when you talked about commoditization to me means something that's kind of just off the shelf, right? That's not what we do. We do something that's not just off the shelf. We work with each client individually. We work with their teams to make sure that we're producing something that is very relevant to them. So it's not just strict commoditization.
Very kind of Japan specific. And we were talking a lot about missing data. And I think I'm sure you guys have different assumptions that you can put in. And even just the weather forecasting, a lot of times it may just be data points that's across a region. And you guys are probably able to kind of more accurately pinpoint the different readings for specific locations.
That's exactly right. So when it comes to weather data, we do have our own system that we've developed for that, but we're somewhat agnostic when it comes to that. We can use other weather data if the client asks that we do that. Right.
That's more on an ad hoc basis.
Yeah. So you mentioned as well just now about maybe some data that's missing and making certain assumptions. So yeah, I mean, modern AIs don't necessarily require a full, complete set of data. They can make certain intelligent assumptions as well by themselves. Yeah.
One other thing that we wanted to ask would be kind of these power anomalies that we see on the grid. What exactly is this? Are these kind of like maintenance for power plants that were not scheduled, or are these kind of real technical issues of the grid?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we can look at that a few different ways. So we've got what we call technical losses, which is one thing that we look at. So technical losses would be inefficiencies in the grid, maybe some issues with substations, that type of thing, right? So it enables that to be honed and to be identified, right? And then you've got what we call non-technical losses, which is not such a big issue in Japan, but it can be a massive issue in other parts of the world. So non-technical losses would be, for example, the theft of electricity. So there are some places in the world where people individuals might connect to the grid, connect to the power lines illegally and bypass the meter or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, but then those anomalies, wouldn't the utility companies kind of catch it? Because if you suddenly just connect to the grid, if they suddenly see a power surge and it's kind of like not matching with the forecasted demand, like would they be able to catch that, or actually it's quite slow in catching that?
If it occurred all at once, yes, they'd be able to see a spike in the grid like that, but it doesn't, right? Like,
because it has to be a massive spike for it to kind of for them to be able
to So
see it on
an
the
individual connecting to the grid is not going to be something that they'd necessarily notice.
Significant enough, yeah.
Right.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. But then your software is able to kind of look at these anomalies, kind of minor differences.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Very interesting.
I remember we talked about this a few weeks ago. You're actually the one who taught me a little bit about the electricity theft on this. And I ran some numbers. I saw that in India it's actually about 25% of electricity theft.
Oh,
we're looking at the electricity market.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also had some sources that said about 20%, but let's put that from 20 to 25, which is absolutely crazy. And that calculates to $16 billion for India from losses in electricity theft.
Yep.
Wow.
So if you can calculate that, you have a massive revenue gain. So I think that
or also cost savings for the utility companies.
Yeah.
From that side.
Yeah. And when you're looking at this from a global perspective, this goes up to $89 billion. So that's across the world, right? And it really goes to show how important this is, or like how massive this is of a thing.
And that would be by definition an estimate. It could be more than that or or much less than that. I mean, there's some markets we've seen where it's much greater than 25%,
Yeah.
right? So, and there's some areas in the world where perhaps you wouldn't think it's an issue, but it actually is. So, was talking to some of the grid operators in Australia, and it's a minor issue there, but still, it's an issue that's a big enough issue for them to be concerned about it.
Yeah.
Especially when you get outside of the major cities, it can become an issue there. Yeah.
I mean, even in Japan, you have the low voltage distribution lines. You can see them in the infrastructure here, right? You could potentially tap onto that. I know that it's not common here, and that electricity theft isn't a massive thing here. But the idea, or like the fact that you could do it, is still something that, I mean, I'd like to, just if it's possible, I'd like to run the data if I could, right? But maybe that's just on me. I have a lot of trust in this country. I also have a lot of trust in Denmark, but I'd probably also want to run that there if that would be a possibility, right? But yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting way to do that. Do you guys also run the electricity theft in Japan? Is that a thing that you're?
I mean, potentially we could run it anywhere, right? Like every single product that we have, we could run anywhere. We've got the algorithms, the mathematics to back it. We do need some data to feed into that from the client end. But anything that you see on our website, we can run that anywhere.
Right on. And more broadly on anomaly detection, I mean, we talked a little bit about the electricity theft, but there's also anything from like meter tampering, there's billing errors, there's technical losses from heat and transmission inefficiencies.
Yeah.
These are all well documented in some markets. It's less so documented in Japan. Is this something that you guys also look at, or is this something that's more run through like the utilities that they're prioritizing? How does that work?
We can help them with that. I mean, we do look at grid efficiency and so on as well. So that the technical losses, that's part of what we do.
I think that's about it then. Thank you so much, Gordon. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
It's
great to be here.
Yeah, massively. All right. So this has been the Japan Energy Podcast. There's going to be links to Ogre AI's website, so we're going to include that. And then also, if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or followed us on LinkedIn and Gordon, please feel free to do that. We're also available on Apple Podcasts and
Spotify, YouTube.
YouTube, this is the one. There you go. All right. That's about it on our end.
Thank you again, Gordon.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Much appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been doing the ending for several,
and I keep messing it up. I feel like the ending of the podcast is always like this.